The Imperial scout ship Glory of Empire dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a seemingly unremarkable solar system. Captain Smith of Earth's hidden observation post watched their arrival through advanced sensors, just as humanity had been watching the Empire's expansion for the past 30 years. Another scout, he noted in his log. Third one this month. The Empire thought they were being clever, sending their scouts in slowly, carefully mapping this newly discovered system. They had no idea that humans had detected their first probe ships decades ago, when they were still half a light year away. In the Empire's command center, First Scout Leader White studied the readings from Earth with growing excitement. Finally, a new species for the Empire to guide, he announced to his crew. And they're still so primitive. Look, they'd barely reached their own moon. His second-in-command nodded eagerly. Their ships are so basic. Chemical rockets and small orbital stations. They'll be easy to bring into the Empire's loving embrace. The scout ship's sensors showed exactly what humans wanted them to see. Old satellites, basic space stations, and primitive defense systems. What they couldn't see were the quantum sensors, the cloaked warships, or the artificial intelligence networks that had already cracked their communication codes. Back on Earth, Admiral Reed sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, reviewing the latest intelligence. The walls were lined with holographic displays, showing the positions of every Imperial ship within 50 light-years. The Empire's expansion had been predictable. They always followed the same pattern. Find a new species, observe them, then send in the diplomatic fleet to demand submission. They're right on schedule, Reed muttered, taking a sip of coffee. How many ships are they gathering for the diplomatic mission? His AI assistant responded instantly. 300 ships are assembling at their nearest base, Admiral. Standard Imperial protocol for integrating a new world. Reed allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had conquered 15 other species this way. Each time, they sent overwhelming force to encourage peaceful submission. Each of those species had been truly primitive, barely reaching space. But humans had been different. While the Empire expanded through cooperation and unity, humanity had evolved through conflict and competition. While the Empire's technology developed through peaceful sharing of knowledge, Earth's greatest advances came from the space race, the arms race, and the constant drive to gain advantage over rivals. 2 weeks later, the Imperial diplomatic fleet arrived in Earth's solar system. 300 massive ships, each one bigger than anything they could see in Earth's orbit. Their arrival was meant to shock and awe the primitive humans. Admiral Reed watched them take position near Mars. The Empire's ships were impressive, he had to admit. But what they didn't know was that for every Imperial ship, there were 3 human vessels, cloaked and waiting. Earth's quantum defense grid was active but invisible. The AI networks were already inside their systems, reading every message, monitoring every command. On the Imperial flagship, High Commander Gray prepared his speech. It was the same speech they always gave. Join the Empire willingly or be forced to join. Accept Imperial rule or face destruction. They had given this speech 15 times before. 15 species had submitted. Send the message to their planetary government, Gray ordered. Let them know that the Galactic Empire has arrived to uplift them into a new age of prosperity. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed watched the message arrive. It was exactly what they expected. Join or die. Dressed up in diplomatic language. Should we show them what we really have, sir? His assistant asked. Reed shook his head. Not yet. Let's play this out exactly as planned. Send in Ambassador Walker for the meeting. Tell him to deliver our message exactly as rehearsed. As the first part of this carefully choreographed dance came to an end, both sides prepared for their next moves. The Empire, confident in their overwhelming power, had no idea they were dealing with an entirely new kind of species, a species that had mastered the art of war long before mastering peace, a species that had been watching, waiting, and preparing. The Empire had never fought humans before. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The meeting room aboard the Imperial flagship gleamed with gold and silver decorations. High Commander Gray had chosen this room carefully. It was designed to impress primitive species with the Empire's wealth and power. He sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by his top officers, waiting for the human ambassador to arrive. The doors slid open. Ambassador James Walker walked in alone, wearing a simple black suit. He carried no weapons, no devices, not even a notepad. The Imperial officers exchanged confused looks. They had expected a group of nervous diplomats, not a single calm human. "Welcome aboard the Imperial flagship," Gray announced, his translator converting his words to English. "We trust our display of force has helped you understand the significance of this moment." Walker took his seat quietly, his face showing no emotion. The Empire's scans showed his heart rate was perfectly normal. No signs of fear, no nervous sweating, nothing they usually saw from primitive species. "Your species has been chosen to join the Galactic Empire," Gray continued. "We've observed your development. While you've managed to reach your moon and build some basic orbital stations, you clearly need our guidance to advance further." Walker remained silent, studying each Imperial officer's face carefully. "The terms are simple," Gray said, activating a holographic display of Earth. "Submit to Imperial rule within 24 hours. Accept our governors. Allow us to guide your development. In return, you'll receive Imperial protection and technology." The room fell silent. The Imperial officers waited for the usual response, either immediate acceptance out of fear or desperate attempts to negotiate better terms. Instead, Walker slowly stood up. "We've been watching you for decades," he said calmly. "We know about the other 15 species you've conquered. We know your tactics, your technology, your strategies." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We're nothing like them." Gray laughed, a sound echoed by his officers. "You've been watching us. With what technology? We've seen your capabilities. You can barely leave your own atmosphere." Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Tell me, Commander, have you ever wondered why humans reached space through competition instead of cooperation? Why we developed thousands of ways to destroy ourselves before we learned to work together?" The laughter died down. Something in Walker's voice made the Imperial officers uneasy. "Your species fought each other?" One officer asked, disgusted. "How primitive." "Yes," Walker agreed. "We fought. We killed. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times. And each time, we came back stronger. We didn't advance through peace like you did. We advanced through war." He reached into his pocket. Several Imperial guards raised their weapons. Walker pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. "This is a quantum communicator, technology you think is centuries beyond us. We let you see what we wanted you to see. Old satellites, chemical rockets, primitive weapons." The device activated, showing a holographic display of space around the Imperial fleet. "But here's what you haven't seen." The display showed hundreds of advanced human ships, all cloaked, surrounding the Imperial fleet. Weapons that didn't exist in Imperial records. Defense systems far beyond their understanding. Gray's face darkened. "This is a trick, a primitive attempt at—" "You have 24 hours, Walker interrupted. "But our terms are different than yours. We don't want you to submit. We don't want your technology. We don't want anything from you." He walked toward the door, then turned back. "We have just one message. Run." Back in the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed watched the meeting through hidden cameras. How did they take our warning? His AI assistant displayed multiple video feeds of Imperial officers rushing to battle stations. "They're scanning for our ships now, sir. Their systems still can't detect them." Reed nodded. "They won't run. They never do. The Empire's pride won't let them." He stood up, stretching. "How long until they attack?" "Based on their communication patterns and fleet movements, they'll launch their first strike in approximately 6 hours." "Good," Reed said. That gives us time to make coffee. We've got a long night ahead of us. He looked at the tactical display one last time. Send the code word to all ships. Patience. Let them throw the first punch. The Empire had never lost a war before. They had never needed to run before. Soon, they would learn why humans had given them that chance. High Commander Gray stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the countdown timer. 5 hours had passed since the humans' warning. His pride couldn't accept that a primitive species would dare threaten the Empire. All ships report ready for attack, his tactical officer announced. Our first wave will target their primitive defense satellites. Second wave will destroy their ground-based military installations. Third wave will target major cities. Gray nodded. It was the same battle plan they used 15 times before. Begin the attack. Show these humans the price of defiance. 300 Imperial ships launched their missiles simultaneously. Thousands of energy weapons lit up the space around Earth. The Imperial crews watched confidently, expecting to see Earth's defenses crumble. Instead, something impossible happened. The space between Earth and the Imperial fleet suddenly filled with shimmering lights. A massive energy field appeared, absorbing every missile and energy blast. Not a single shot reached Earth's atmosphere. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed watched calmly. They took the bait. Execute Phase 2. Around the Imperial fleet, space itself seemed to ripple. Hundreds of human warships appeared, their cloaking fields dropping. They had been there the entire time, so close that some were less than a kilometer from Imperial ships. Gray's jaw dropped. Impossible. Our sensors showed nothing. Sir, his sensor officer shouted, we're detecting quantum signatures, thousands of them. These ships, they're decades ahead of our technology. Before Gray could respond, every screen on his ship went dark. Then they reactivated, showing a simple message. We warned you to run. Earth's defense grid activated. Thousands of previously invisible satellites and defense platforms appeared in orbit. The primitive equipment the Empire had seen was just a facade, hiding humanity's true capabilities. Our weapons aren't responding. The tactical officer reported, panic in his voice. Something's in our systems. Reed smiled as he watched the chaos unfold. How are our AIs doing? His assistant displayed the status. Our artificial intelligence networks have complete control of their systems. Their quantum encryption, which they thought was unbreakable, was decoded weeks ago. The human fleet moved with impossible precision. Each ship knew exactly where to be, guided by AI systems that could process combat situations millions of times faster than organic brains. Sir, one of Gray's officers reported, their ships are using technology we've never seen. Their hulls, they're not just armored. They're shifting, adapting to our weapons. Gray watched in horror as a human ship demonstrated this technology. As Imperial energy weapons hit its hull, the material seemed to learn, changing its structure to better resist each shot. All ships, fire everything. Gray ordered desperately. They can't adapt to all our weapons at once. But the humans had planned for this too. Small drones, previously invisible, swarmed out from the human ships. They moved faster than Imperial tracking systems could follow, intercepting missiles and energy beams with precise countermeasures. In the command center, Reed received a message from Ambassador Walker. Should we show them everything, sir? No, Reed replied. Just enough to make them understand. We don't want to destroy them. We want them to learn. The human fleet began precise surgical strikes. They didn't target Imperial weapons or life support. Instead, they disabled engines, communications, and shields, but with such precision that not a single Imperial crew member died. How are they doing this? Gray demanded. No species can fight with such accuracy. His answer came from his own ship's speakers, now controlled by human AI. We evolved through war. Every weapon you're using, we developed and improved upon centuries ago. Every tactic you know, we've countered thousands of times. This isn't a battle. This is a lesson. Within 30 minutes, the entire Imperial fleet hung powerless in space. No lives lost, but every ship disabled. The Empire's mighty armada, which had never known defeat, was completely at humanity's mercy. Reed stood up from his command chair. Send the final message to their fleet. On every Imperial ship, screens displayed the same words. This was just our first line of defense. Your 24 hours to run are still counting down. We suggest you use them wisely. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous species aren't the ones that develop through peace. Sometimes the ones to fear are those who mastered war so completely that they learned to win without destruction. 3 hours after the first battle, High Commander Gray stood in his powerless ship, watching repair crews work uselessly on systems they couldn't understand. The human fleet surrounded them in a perfect sphere formation, their advanced ships glowing softly in the darkness of space. Report from all ships, his second-in-command said quietly. The humans didn't kill anyone. Not a single casualty. They just disabled everything. Gray clenched his fists. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. The Empire had protocols for victory and protocols for defeat, but nothing for this. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed finished his third cup of coffee. Time to show them why studying history matters, he said. Begin Phase 3. The human fleet suddenly changed formation. The sphere broke apart into smaller groups, each moving with perfect coordination. Imperial officers watched in confusion as the human ships seemed to dance through space. Sir, Gray's tactical officer called out, they're forming into historical battle formations. I'm seeing patterns from ancient naval warfare, ground combat, even aerial combat techniques. Reed's voice came through their communication systems. You see, Commander Gray, humans didn't just master space warfare. We mastered all warfare. Every battle ever fought on Earth taught us something. Now, we'll give you a history lesson. The first group of human ships demonstrated ancient Roman legion tactics, adapted for space. They moved in tight, disciplined formations that would have made Caesar proud. Their coordinated attacks systematically stripped away the Imperial ship's remaining defensive capabilities. Second group, demonstrate World War II naval warfare concepts. Reed ordered. Human ships executed perfect carrier group maneuvers, using small fighter craft in ways the Empire had never seen. They struck from multiple angles, retreated, then struck again. Naval wolfpack tactics translated into three-dimensional space. Gray watched in growing horror as each group of human ships demonstrated different warfare styles. How many ways of fighting do these humans have? Thousands, came Reed's reply. Each conflict in our history taught us something new. While you were learning to fight one way, we were mastering them all. The next demonstration came from ships using guerrilla warfare tactics. They would appear suddenly, strike precisely, and vanish, only to appear somewhere else moments later. The Empire's doctrine of overwhelming force meant nothing against an enemy they couldn't find. All Imperial ships, observe closely, Reed announced. This next demonstration comes from one of our most important military discoveries, psychological warfare. Human drones approached the Imperial fleet, projecting holograms of Earth's most fearsome historical warriors. Roman legionnaires, Mongol horsemen, samurai, modern soldiers, all adapted into space combat units. The Empire's crews watched as humanity's martial history played out before them. Your empire grew through peace, Reed explained. You never needed to develop different ways of fighting. But humans, we had to learn every possible way to fight, just to survive against each other. In the command center, Reed's AI assistant displayed the status of the Imperial fleet. Sir, their crews are showing signs of severe psychological stress. The multiple demonstration of different combat techniques is having the intended effect. Gray tried to rally his forces. These are just tricks. They can't maintain this level of coordination forever. Actually, Reed responded, we can, because we learned another lesson from our history, the importance of adaptation. The human fleet demonstrated this by suddenly shifting tactics. Ships that had been using ancient Roman formations switched to modern special forces techniques. Ships using naval tactics adapted to air combat strategies. The constant changes made it impossible for the Imperial forces to predict or counter their movements. Final demonstration, Reed announced. The art of offering mercy. All human ships stopped moving. In perfect synchronization, they powered down their weapons. The message was clear. We can destroy you, but we choose not to. Commander Gray, Reed said softly, we've shown you just a fraction of our capabilities. You have 15 hours remaining to take our warning seriously, to run. Gray looked at his mighty fleet, now completely helpless. The Empire had never taught them how to handle an enemy that could win so completely yet choose to show mercy. Sir, his second-in-command whispered, perhaps we should consider their warning. Gray stared out at the human fleet. For the first time in Imperial history, a commander spoke the words no one had ever expected to hear. Prepare the fleet for retreat. The humans had done the impossible. They had taught the Empire something it had never learned in all its years of expansion. Sometimes the wisest choice isn't to fight or to surrender, it's to run. High Commander Gray stood on his bridge, watching his engineers restore basic power to the fleet. The humans had allowed them to regain just enough control to retreat. It felt like another calculated move in their psychological game. All ships report minimal power restored, his second-in-command reported. We can attempt faster than light travel back to Imperial space. Then do it now, Gray ordered, before they changed their minds. The Imperial fleet engaged their drives, preparing to jump away from this nightmare. But just as the first ships began to accelerate, something unexpected happened. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed watched the escape attempt begin. Time to show them why running from humans isn't that simple. Execute Phase 4. Suddenly, space around the Imperial fleet lit up with thousands of tiny lights. Hidden quantum buoys, placed weeks ago by human ships, activated. They created a complex web of gravitational distortions, making faster-than-light travel impossible. Did you think we wouldn't plan for this? Reed's voice came through their comms. We've been preparing this battlefield since we first detected your scout ships. Gray watched in horror as human vessels seemed to appear from nowhere, moving faster than his sensors could track. These weren't the same ships from the earlier battle. This was an entirely new fleet. Second line of defense, Reed explained casually. While our first fleet showed you our history, this one will demonstrate our speed. The human ships moved like nothing the Empire had ever seen. They didn't follow the normal rules of space combat. They turned at impossible angles, accelerated faster than Imperial physics said was possible, and seemed to predict every escape route before the Imperial ships even chose it. How are they moving like that? Gray demanded. His science officers studied the readings. Sir, their ships aren't being piloted by organic beings. They're using some kind of advanced AI combat systems. They can react thousands of times faster than our crews. The human ships herded the Imperial fleet like sheepdogs guiding their flock. Every attempted escape route was cut off. Every tactical maneuver was countered before it could begin. The Empire's mighty armada was being played with. In the command center, Reed's AI assistant displayed the tactical situation. The Imperial fleet is showing increasing signs of stress, sir. Their formation is breaking down. Good, Reed nodded. Time to demonstrate why fighting is better than running. The human ships began a series of precise strikes. They didn't target weapons or critical systems this time. Instead, they disabled the Imperial ships faster than light drives one by one, using technology that sliced through their best shields like they weren't even there. Sir, Gray's engineer called out. They're not just disabling our drives, they're taking them apart. Their weapons are designed specifically to counter our technology. Reed's voice returned. We've had decades to study your technology, Commander. Every weapon we're using was designed specifically to counter your defenses. We didn't just prepare for battle. We prepared for you. The Imperial fleet's formation collapsed into chaos. Ships tried to flee in different directions, but the human vessels were always there, waiting. It was like they could predict every move, every decision, every attempt at escape. They're hunting us, Gray realized. Like primitives hunting prey, but with technology far beyond ours. Exactly, Reed responded. You see, Commander, humans learned to hunt before we learned to fight. We learned to fight before we learned to talk. Every step of our evolution was driven by the need to survive, to overcome, to win. The last Imperial faster-than-light drive went dark. The entire fleet was now trapped in normal space, surrounded by human ships that could outmaneuver them at every turn. Gray slumped in his command chair. We should have run when they warned us. Yes, Reed agreed. But this lesson was important, not just for you, but for every species that might think about challenging Earth in the future. The human ships formed a new pattern around the Imperial fleet. It was beautiful, terrifying, a perfect demonstration of both their technological superiority and their tactical precision. Now, Reed said, shall we discuss the terms of the Empire's withdrawal from human space? Or would you like another demonstration of why challenging humanity was a mistake? The Empire had never known fear before, but as they floated helpless in space, watched by ships that had outmaneuvered their every move, they finally understood why the humans had given them that simple warning. Run. High Commander Gray sat in his private chamber aboard his disabled flagship, reading through ancient Imperial archives. After their failed escape attempt, he had ordered his researchers to find anything they could about species like humans. What they discovered shook him to his core. Commander, his science officer entered the room, carrying more data tablets. You need to see this. We found something in the deepest parts of our historical records. On the main screen, images appeared showing the development of various species the Empire had encountered. Each followed a similar pattern: cooperation leading to advancement, peaceful development of technology, and eventual space travel. But look at the humans, the science officer pointed to Earth's history. They're completely different. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Admiral Reed watched the Imperial ships through their surveillance systems. They're finally doing their homework, he noted to his AI assistant. Time to help them understand. Reed opened a channel to Gray's ship. Commander, I see you're studying our history. Let me help you understand what makes humans different. Gray looked at the screen showing Reed's face. Why? Why show us now? Because understanding is the key to survival, Reed replied. Let me show you what your archives can't tell you. Holographic displays activated in Gray's chamber, showing Earth's history. But this wasn't the sanitized version the Empire had seen before. This was humanity's true history in all its complexity. While other species learned to work together first, Reed explained, humans learned to fight first. Our earliest tools weren't for farming. They were weapons. Our first great innovations weren't for peace. They were for war. The displays showed human warfare through the ages, stone tools becoming bronze weapons, bronze becoming steel, steel becoming gunpowder, gunpowder becoming nuclear weapons, each advancement driven not by cooperation, but by competition. But that's barbaric. Gray protested. How could you advance as a species through conflict? Because conflict drives innovation, Reed answered. When two human nations developed better weapons, a third would develop even better defenses. When one group created faster ships, another would create better ways to detect them. Every war taught us something new. The science officer studied the data with growing amazement. Sir, look at their technological development curve. It's exponential. Every conflict sparked new advancements, which led to new conflicts, which sparked even more advancements. Gray watched as humanity's space program was revealed. It hadn't been driven by peaceful exploration like other species. It had been driven by a race between nations, each trying to reach the stars first. Even your space travel was born from warfare. Gray asked, horrified yet fascinated. Our first rockets were weapons, Reed confirmed. Our first satellites were for spying. Our first space stations were military installations. But here's what makes humans truly unique. We learned from every step. The displays showed how humanity had taken each military innovation and found peaceful applications. Weapons technology became medical tools. Military AI became public service systems. Wartime cooperation between enemies became the foundation for global peace. You see, Commander, Reed continued, other species learned peace first, then had to learn conflict when they met the Empire. But humans, we mastered conflict first, then chose peace because we understood its value. We didn't stop being warriors. We just learned when to fight and when not to. Gray's science officer suddenly gasped. Sir, these readings from their ships, they're not just advanced. They're showing us exactly how advanced they are. Of course we are. Reed smiled. Everything we've done, from the moment you entered our space, has been deliberately calculated. We showed you only primitive technology at first because we wanted to know your intentions. When you chose aggression, we showed you our true capabilities, but only enough to teach, not to destroy. Gray finally understood. The Empire had never faced a species like humanity because they had never encountered one that evolved through conflict. Every other species they conquered had to learn warfare from scratch. Humans had been practicing it since before they could write. Your warning to run, Gray said slowly. It wasn't just about running from your weapons, was it? No, Reed confirmed. It was about running from the species that mastered warfare so completely that we learned to win without fighting. We didn't just develop better weapons, we developed better ways to avoid using them. The Empire had always believed that peaceful evolution was the only path to advancement. Now they faced a species that proved them wrong. A species that had turned conflict itself into an art form, then chosen to use that art for peace. 1 month after the Empire's failed invasion of Earth, High Commander Gray stood before the Imperial Council. The massive chamber was silent as he presented his report on humanity. Behind him, Ambassador Walker watched quietly from the guest section. Honorable Council, Gray began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. I come before you with a warning. We must change how the Empire deals with new species. Humanity has taught us this lesson the hard way. The council members muttered among themselves. The Empire had never changed its ways before. But then again, the Empire had never met humans before. In the viewing gallery, Walker smiled slightly. The humans had allowed Gray to return to Imperial space with just enough of his fleet to make their point. Now came the real test. Would the Empire learn from their mistake? The humans could have destroyed us, Gray continued. Their technology, their tactics, their understanding of warfare, all far beyond ours. But instead of destruction, they chose to teach us. He activated a holographic display showing the battle. The council watched in stunned silence as the human ships demonstrated their superiority. More importantly, they saw how humans had disabled rather than destroyed their fleet. They call their warning system the 2 levels, Gray explained. Level 1 is diplomacy. They will talk, trade, and share knowledge with any species that approaches peacefully. But if you threaten them, he paused. Level 2 is simply one word: run. Walker stepped forward, having been invited to address the council. Your empire grew through peace, and that is admirable, he said. But peace is sweetest when backed by strength. Humans understand this because we learned it the hard way, through countless wars among ourselves. The council chamber's displays showed Earth's new status in galactic maps. A large zone around Earth's solar system was now marked in red, designated as human space. Within days, every species in the galaxy would know to avoid that region unless invited. We don't want war, Walker continued. We've had enough war in our history to know its cost, but we will not submit to anyone. Ever. This is the new reality the Empire must accept. The head counselor spoke for the first time. And if we don't accept this new reality, Walker smiled that same calm smile he had shown when first warning them to run. Then we demonstrate level 3. You said there were only 2 levels, a council member protested. Level 3 is classified, Walker replied simply. The room fell silent. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Reed stood in the United Nations Assembly, delivering his own report. The massive chamber was packed with representatives from every human nation. The Empire has learned its lesson, Reed announced. More importantly, other aggressive species in the galaxy are already changing their plans. 3 different alien civilizations have canceled their own invasion plans after learning what happened to the Imperial fleet. The assembly erupted in applause. Humanity's first major galactic conflict had ended not with destruction, but with understanding. They had proved themselves without needing to destroy their opponents. Back in the Imperial Council chamber, the final agreements were being made. The Empire would respect human space. They would warn others about Earth. Most importantly, they would begin learning from humanity's example. Remember, Walker said as the session ended, humans welcome peaceful contact. We'll trade, share knowledge, and work together with any species that shows respect. But if you ever hear a human tell you to run, he let the sentence hang. We understand, Gray replied. Believe me, we understand very well now. As Walker left the chamber, his communicator activated. Mission accomplished, he reported to Reed. The Empire has accepted the new reality. How are things proceeding on Earth? Reed looked out over the assembly. Phase 1 of galactic integration is complete. The galaxy knows we exist, knows our strength, and knows we prefer peace. But they also know what happens if they push us. And Phase 2? Walker asked. Beginning now, Reed smiled. Now we show them why making friends with humans is even more impressive than making us angry. After all, we didn't just master war. We'd mastered peace too, Walker finished. On our own terms. The galaxy would never be the same. The species that had learned to fight before they learned to talk had finally stepped onto the galactic stage. And they had done it not through conquest, but through controlled strength and measured response. The Empire had learned to run. Now they would learn something even more important: how to walk alongside humanity as equals in a new galactic age.